Alright, what's up, guys? Here tonight to make another football video. This is one I had missed. With a newborn in the house, I have a three-week year-old daughter, and I can't keep up with as many videos as I once did. But this was another challenge for Mack. This one was like your favorite losses and your favorite wins in your team's history. So I thought this would be a cool one to do, and so I'll go ahead and run them down to you. This is just me, just in my opinions. Everybody has different opinions. Okay, losses. We'll go from 5 to 1. Number 5 on my list when it comes to losses was just from last year when we lost to Tampa Bay. We were such a better team than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay had never won in Pittsburgh. And for them to come in there and beat the Steelers at Heinz Field was just embarrassing. And it was really a hard loss. I was in shock. It's a loss that I'll never forget. And I was just thinking about that game the other day and how I could not believe we lost to Tampa Bay as bad as they were at Heinz Field. As the game would go on, Pittsburgh will let them hang around. Turnovers cost them, and there at the end they threw the touchdown for the win. That was a tough loss for me, man. Just my personal thoughts on that. Tampa Bay is a horrible team. We all know the history on Tampa. They were horrible until Tony Dungy got there. And then John Gruden won the title with Tony Dungy's players. But that's not really what this is about. My 5th on my countdown for most embarrassing or heartbreaking loss was last year to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Under that, I have losing the Super Bowl to the Packers. This was a Super Bowl for some reason that I was really confident in the Steelers winning. Aaron Rodgers is probably the best quarterback in football. One of them for sure. But the way the Steelers have been playing, I thought for sure that they would go in and win their 7th Super Bowl. But turnovers killed them. The pick 6 from Ben and the fumble from Mendenhall. But Pittsburgh still hung around, came back. They were one drive away from winning that game. That's what a lot of people forget. But I think the turnovers and being down by a lot early, people tend to forget that. But anytime you lose a game in the Super Bowl of a team you love, like I do the Steelers, it's going to hurt. But I respect the hell out of the Packers and their organization and their fan base. They've always been pretty cool to me anyway, in my eyes. But number 4 was the loss in the Super Bowl to the Packers a few years back. Number 3, 2012 wild card game against Denver and Tim Tebow. Just the way, it goes to overtime, and it just takes one pass. Tebow, bam, touchdown, it's over. I thought Pittsburgh's defense would have slaughtered Tebow in this game. But Tebow always proves his doubters wrong. He's going to Philly. Let's see what he'll do. But that was just a heartbreaking loss for me. I hated to see it. Just losing to Tim Tebow, to Denver, on the first play of fucking overtime. I know our team was really aging on defense, and it was showing. But that was a heartbreaking loss for me. I know it's just the first round of the playoffs, but still, it was one I'll never forget. Two on my list is New England in the 2004 AFC title game. The Steelers were 15-1. They had beaten everybody. The only team they lost to all year was the Ravens. It's at Heinz Field. It's supposedly supposed to be Bettis' last season. We had a hell of a team that year. In the regular season, we crushed them. I mean, we beat the brakes off of them, and then we get into the playoffs, and it's 24-3 at halftime, and they just ate us apart. I felt that if we would have won that game, we would have won the Super Bowl that year as well. It was a heartbreaking loss. The hatred I have for Tom Brady and the Patriots grows more and more every day. And that was definitely one of the toughest losses that I've ever witnessed being a Steelers fan. Now, my number one toughest loss as a Steelers fan comes when I was a young man. I become a Steeler fan because my grandpa worked in Pittsburgh in a factory, and his son, my uncle, and my father were all Steeler fans, so I became a Steeler fan. Well, the Steelers are always mediocre when I was watching them at a young age, but they finally got to the Super Bowl against Dallas, Super Bowl 30. And I'll never forget the pass Neil O'Donnell threw to Larry Brown. I was depressed. I didn't even go to school the next day. I was so mad. I even got in trouble because I broke my mom and dad's coffee table after the game. It's definitely the most devastating loss that I ever witnessed as a Steeler fan. I remember it like it was yesterday, and it still bothers me to this day, and it's one of the reasons I have so much hatred for the Dallas Cowboys and Neil O'Donnell. So those are my five, the worst losses. Now let's get to the funner things here. Let's talk about wins. Favorite wins in Steelers history. Now you gotta remember, I've been a Steeler fan for like 25 years, okay? Since I was a little boy. Some of you guys have liked the Steelers forever, a lot longer than I have. You got to see them in their heyday. So those games in the 70s aren't going to be on this list, but I'll go through my favorite wins as a Steeler fan. Number 5 was just a fun game. It was on Fox. I can't remember. I want to say it was 2010. I can't remember the year, but it was the Steelers and Packers, and it was just a scoring frenzy, man. And they would go up and down the field. They would score all over the place. I don't know if any of you guys remember this game, but the last play of the game, it was 36-30, and Ben Roethlisberger threw a bomb in the corner of the end zone to Mike Wallace, and he would tippy-toe and catch it on that side of the end zone. It was the same play San Antonio Holmes made on the other end, but Mike Wallace would hit it, and the Steelers would pick up the win 37-36. I thought it was an awesome game, one of my favorite games of all time. But defense got thrown out the window that game. But I would have much rather lost that game and won the Super Bowl against the Packers. I think it was the next year that happened. But that was a fun game. If you can find it on YouTube, go check it out. Number 4, beating Dallas. Beating Dallas. This was, of course, the year that we were going to win our 6th Super Bowl. We were down 13-3 late in the game to the Cowboys. Dallas is silent. That's when they had T.O. He was already barking, talking about how they won. Romo was making lucky-ass plays. Pittsburgh would kick a field goal, make it 13-6. And then I believe we had the ball on the goal line and they held us. But we would get the ball back, and Ben would find Heath Miller in the corner for a touchdown, tied up at 13-all. And then we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. There's not much time left at all, maybe like 40 seconds, I'd say. And Romo drops back, chokes, throws a interception to a longtime veteran, Deshae Townsend. Deshae Townsend picks it off for the touchdown. Heinz Field goes absolutely apeshit. I watched this game with my dad, and it was just one of those games that I'll never forget. As painful as it was watching for 3 quarters, that fourth quarter of that game was absolutely magical, and I love watching Tony Romo and them bitches walk off our field crying. You know, that's why Tomlin always says it's a 60-minute game. Number 3 on my list for favorite win is also in that same year. It's the AFC Championship game. Steelers-Ravens. Winner faces Arizona in the Super Bowl. It's also my favorite Troy Polamalu play of all time, where he picks off Flacco and takes it in for the win. I just thought it was an awesome game. Steelers and Ravens, so you know it was physical. You know it was a good game. And Pittsburgh actually beat the Ravens 3 times that year. Raven fans probably will try to forget it, but it was a beautiful thing. Took Pittsburgh back to the Super Bowl. Just an awesome game. Awesome game. And just, once again, another game that I'll never forget. Number 2 and number 1 was a hard one for me. Number 2 is when Bettis won the Super Bowl 40, when we won our 5th one. This one actually could have been number 1. This one's a high moment for me because this is the first Super Bowl I actually got ever to see the Steelers win. Jerome Bettis, growing up, was my favorite running back. He's still my favorite running back of all time. I know I might get some heat from that. So glad to see him go in the Hall of Fame this year, but I was so glad to see them win the Super Bowl. You know, this was an amazing year where they barely got in the playoffs and they played all their games on the road and they won the Super Bowl. Cowher got his first. This one easily could have been number 1, but it's not. Number 1 is, of course, when they beat Arizona in the Super Bowl. What a game. My favorite play in Steelers history is the 100-and-something yard interception return that James Harrison had right before halftime to put on 17-7. But the catch in the corner of the end zone by Santonio Holmes was just phenomenal. One of the best innings to a Super Bowl ever. And I watched that on DVD all the time because I enjoyed it so much. But this has just been, Mack Mayne. Mack, he had a challenge a few weeks ago talking about favorite wins, favorite losses, and I had just seen the video and got caught up on it. And sorry I'm late, but like I said, I have a newborn, and that's been my top priority. But this has just been another video, and I'll see you guys next time, man. Peace.